Athens is one of the most significant cities for world history. Art, architecture, culture, and still fascinates people from all aspects of life, be it as a tourist, archaeologist, or an international student. When moving back in time, Ancient Athens, or sometimes referred to as Classical Athens, was a powerful city-state. It was a central bastion of the arts, philosophy, learning, and theatre, and has been referred to as the cradle of Western civilization due to its cultural and political impact on the European continent, and in particular, the Romans. The ancient Greeks' love for the arts and literature was well known to the world, and thus attracted many famous writers, architects, playwrights, whom settled down in the city, which led to the mass expansion of Athens' population. They created thousands of temples, statues, paintings, and texts, and thus the rise of culture reached its peak during this era, and Athens prospered as a centre for arts and learning. A famous example of Athenian style of architecture is the Parthenon. Most Athenians enjoyed watching plays at the theatre, which was specifically focused on tragedies and comedies, and also most philosophers had their own schools in which they taught their ideas and beliefs. It was the Athenians who taught us about geometry, atoms, astronomy, solidifying the theory that the Earth is spherical, physics, and mathematics. Sadly, due to a predominant focus on the arts and literature over warfare, the Athenian army was not very sizable or powerful. Soldiers were required to serve for 2 years, and from then on they could still be called upon to fight, meaning they wouldn't receive regular training. This was the complete opposite to their long-term rivals, Sparta. A soldier was called a hoplite, who was primarily armed with a shield and a spear. Accompanying every hoplite was a lightly armoured attendant, either a poor citizen who could not afford a regular suit of armour, or a trusted slave called a helot. These attendants carried the hoplite's shield into battle, and most of the baggage. While generally armed with javelins, they sometimes had spears, slings, and bows. They were assigned to guard the camp during the actual fight. When the battle was over, they would attempt either to cover the retreat of the main body or slaughter the fleeing enemy forces if their own hoplites were victorious. They fought many wars from the Battle of Salamis to the Battle of Pylos, and famously the Battle of Marathon, which was the most prominent battle that changed the course of history, marking a turning point in Greco-Persian wars. Sadly, despite being so culturally rich, there was a system of hierarchy which divided the Athenians into 4 major classes. At the top were the upper class, also known as the leisure class, who handled government departments, literature, philosophy, and the theatre of war. The next were the middle class, also known as metics, and were granted lesser rights than the upper class, no citizenship, thus meaning no right to vote or marry to a citizen. Then we have the lower class, or freed men, whom were slaves in the past but somehow were freed by their masters. They were never considered as a citizen of Athens. And finally, at the bottom of the hierarchy came the slaves. The most unfortunate of these were captured during wars or were criminals and had no rights. Their masters would beat them indiscriminately and they were not allowed to defend themselves. Athenians have left us with some of the most beautiful and jaw-dropping marvels of architecture, which ranges from the Parthenon Temple Acropolis, which was built in the 5th century BC, made of Pentelic marble and dedicated to the goddess Athena, to the sanctuary of Delphi, which was a religious and cultural centre for the ancient Greeks, as well as the Epidurus Ancient Theatre, where religious festivities and theatre performances to honour the gods would take place. On an ending note, these are some of the fun facts which you may consider about the Athenians before taking them lightly. They had their fair share of attention towards sex, from having sex slaves to drama themes on sex to naughty erotic images being featured on vases and cups. Yup, you heard it right. It was the birthplace of democracy, and almost each and every system tried in itself, from communism to socialism and of course monarchism. The first ever play in human history was performed in Athens. Well, this is the most fascinating, as Athens was the birthplace of modern Olympic Games in 1896. However, the ancient Olympics were never actually held in the Greek capital. It is Europe's oldest capital, with origins dating back to 3000 BC.
Thank you for watching the video. If you did enjoy it, then please give the video a like, as that will help the channel. On this page I have all of my supporters that I am very grateful to have. These videos do take a while to make, so if you wish to help this creative process, then please check out the join button below and my Patreon page.